chat, and today it's not actually going to be about motorhomes or van life. It's going to be about buying a property in Italy. And the reason I'm actually interested in this, my personal where I got into sort of van life in a big way, was by my desire to actually buy a property in Italy. And so what happened in my case was that I decided I would get myself a motorhome, go down to Italy and find something, someplace to live. And the result was I liked living in the van more than I would like living in a house. So that's what happened to me. And the reason I'm doing this today is because I've seen a huge amount of publicity given to the fact that you can buy a property in Italy for €1. And this is actually nothing new because it has existed for some time. Indeed, I recall seeing a news item on the television about a British couple who bought a property for €1 in the town of Gangi, which is near Palermo in Sicily. But recently there have been there's been a lot of publicity. Last week, the Sun newspaper produced an article not only suggesting that people can buy a place in Troina in Sicily for €1, but that the local authority would pay them to live there. At least that is the way the article presented itself. That's not exactly true. What I want to do here is actually to sort of respond to the other things. I saw something in Fox News a couple of days ago, also not particularly true. There's also something recently in CNN as well, which actually highlighted the facts in a bit more realistic manner. Now, the idea of getting one of these properties is it's quite common now in Italy. In fact, here I've made myself a little list here of places where you can get it. Now you think they'd be just in the south, but it isn't. For example, as far north as Oyas, which is in the Val d'Aosta, which is almost on the Swiss border. There's a couple of locations there where properties for €1 are available, but of course the majority are in the south. For example, in Augusta, close to where I used to hang out and where I intend to be hanging out again in the future in my motorhome, you can buy properties in the centre. In fact, in Augusta, I just I downloaded the forms just to see what they were and to actually read them before I did this. But another place, Biccari, a friend of mine, which is in Puglia. It's sort of, if you see where Naples is, and if you sort of go in a easterly direction, Biccari is a friend of mine sent me an article about this 3 days ago, which in fact actually I think has got me interested to actually do this video. Another place which has got a lot of publicity recently is Laurenzana. Now, Laurenzana is in the district of Potenza and Basilicata. It's to the southeast of Naples, and and that place there has got a lot of. What's curious about Laurenzana is that in 1861, the time of the first 1861, sorry, the time of the first census, the population was more than 3 times more than it is now, and it is with this that we can sort of now lurch into why these places are doing. But before doing that, I'll just mention 1 or 2 other places. For example, Troina, which is in Sicily, in Messina, which is a pretty large place in Italy. In the region of Troina as well, we've got Enna. Another place which is quite big is Taranto, in the port, rather important port. And most of these places are in fact they are in the south, so they're in Sicily, in Basilicata, fewer in Campania. There is 1 or 2 in Calabria, and 1 or 2 in Sardinia. But as I said, there are those in the north as well. So why would a local authority want to sell a property for €1? Because clearly they have certain obligations to their their taxpayers or whatever, and and obviously they're not running a charity. Well, if you read The Sun, you'd think as they're so poor that they have to sort of sell these properties off for €1. That is not the case. The reason they're doing that is, the number one reason is because of depopulation. People have left these areas, and emigration started off in the 19th century, and particularly if it's from the south, it was either to the north of Italy to major industrial centres such as Turin, or it's to the United States, where millions of people actually went off in that direction. So that's the first thing. You've got depopulation. The people who go with Italian emigration, it tended to be the man go off, then he makes himself some money, sends for his family, and then they all go off, and the young ones all sort of follow him. They're leaving the old ones there. The old ones aren't producing anymore, so that when they die, the houses become empty. Then the local authority takes them over and doesn't know what to do with them. So that's more or less that's the pattern of things as it happens. Now, the next thing which is important is the location of these places. Because of the history, people tended to live in hilltop villages. So now that's great to look at. It's great when you're a tourist. It's absolutely fantastic when you're sort of on holiday there. But for living in the 21st century, it doesn't make much sense. So people these days would want to be on flat land near the coast where they can build a normal house. So that's another reason for this depopulation, why people are leaving it. Of course, I mean, the example I give of Laurenzana is an extreme case. I mean, there's 1/3 the population, but in Biccari, for example, the population since 1961 is more than halved. So so that gives sort of a general idea. Now, the local authorities have these places. They want somebody else to take care of them. That is absolutely the case. They don't want the responsibility of the maintenance and upkeep of houses, and they don't want to find themselves with this charge on their hands. So what they do is now they're trying to sell them off for €1. Now, the thing is this, though, it's not a case saying, hang on, I've got €10 here in my back pocket. Should I go down and buy a few crates of beer, or should I buy 10 properties in Italy? It's not quite that case. So you can sort of send to the mayor of Troina a check for €15 and say, look, just give me 15 properties. What happens is that what they want to encourage is people who will do things which will then not only maintain the buildings, but also encourage others to actually go there, or encourage some kind of business, encourage things that would generate income. For example, if you said, look, there's a old, for example, bit of a monastery or nunnery or something like that, which has got a lot of rooms in it. You said, I'd like to turn that into a hotel. And then that's great. Okay, there's your euro, and I'll turn this into a hotel. Now, I'm going to come back to that issue because that is a really important thing. I mean, there may be other businesses you can sort of run from there. I don't know if I can't think of them off the top of my head, but there might be. You might say, well, I'm an artist and I need to live in a wonderful medieval hilltop village, and this is the sort of thing that would suit me. Now, the properties, though, are like this. If they are medieval properties, when medieval properties were built, they were built using the technology of the time and the standards which were required at the time. That is to say, one, they're not very well insulated, so the methods of insulation are possibly now better, and they were heated using open fires, which you may have some problems with these days, and they weren't equipped with running water and sewage. Now, these days, I had a look at some of these properties. Some of them don't have running water and sewage. I mean, sewage would be a septic tank somewhere, but it's these things are a major problem. Next thing is this: if they're medieval, they're almost certainly listed buildings, which means to say they're protected by the state and protected by the rules, and so therefore anything you do, you're going to need permits after permits after permits to actually reconstruct them. For example, one property I looked at said, mind you, it was largely built in the beginning of the 20th century, so it's like say 120 years old or something. But the lower part was medieval. So then you may well have structural problems, and you may have structural problems because this is an earthquake area. And I've just got a very good, interesting question. Do I have any more Carter MP4 clips, please? I don't, but I'm going to be doing them later. But I'll do it on different email, different session. So coming back to the question here about the land. So why are they why are they actually selling this off? So I think therefore if you say that okay, I'm not going to run a business, I just want to retire there, to me this seems to be a rather desperate step. Why would you suddenly want to retire in a place you've possibly never been to? So you might want to go there several times and see what it's like. And so now I'm beginning to get a different idea, because I think, aha, this is just a way of encouraging tourism. Most of these places, or nearly all of them, are in sort of very touristy areas. One of the places, Mussolini, in the southeast corner of Sicily, is incredibly attractive. It's one of my favorite places. And so I'm thinking, what they're thinking, of people just going to go there and have a look and spend a lot of money in the hotels and the restaurants while thinking about which, quite honest, as a marketing ploy, I think that's a pretty good idea. Next thing is, well, what about this €1? So it's not actually going to cost €1, because if you buy anything, you've got notarial fees, which will possibly come to around 3,000, something along those lines, or several hundred at least. Depends on various factors. But more to the point is this: these places are being sold at €1 because they are dilapidated, and in most cases they will require a huge amount of cash to, particularly if it's in a medieval area, to actually redo it. There's difficulty with access, which will put the price up of any work. And not only that, you may have the obligation to use local labor. For example, in Gangi, from this thing I saw on the television a few years ago, they said they had to spend at least €25,000 on with local companies. So they couldn't go to Palermo and find somebody there. They had to use the companies which were in the area. Now, not everywhere is actually saying you have to do that, but some are. Now, and it stands to reason that if you've got a small village of 2,000 inhabitants, there's not going to be many construction companies there, and they've probably got this market sewn up, so they're going to be charging far more than they would normally for the work. So that's the next thing that has to be considered. Furthermore, in most places you have to leave a guarantee that you will start the work. So, for example, what happens is this: today you sign the contract, you hand over your €1, you hand over your €3,000 because you have for the notarial deed, but you are obliged to do certain things within a certain time. So you hand them over your project management list. So you can say on this date this will be done, this will be done, this will be done, and all the rest of it. And then if handover, that is to say it's not finished within a certain time, then you will lose your deposit. I haven't mentioned the deposit yet. The deposit will be normally between 5, 10, even €20,000. So if the work is not completed and it's not your fault, legally you may even lose that money. But you say, okay, €20,000, I'm getting this house in this medieval village, and maybe it wouldn't be my fault. I mean, if you signed a contract, let's say 2 years ago, and because of COVID, I think they would have allowed for that. Of course, they wouldn't want any bad publicity coming as a result, but that is something that could happen as a result of all of this. So, in conclusion, do I think this is a good idea? I think it's a great idea to get publicity for the places. I think it's great for local business, for local tourism, for this type of thing to get. I mean, who'd ever heard of a place like Laurenzana? a week ago, for example, and so that is absolutely, it's been on international television and all the rest of it. So that is absolutely fantastic. Also, I can say from my own point of view, as a historian, I think it's great to save old buildings, because this isn't just houses in medieval villages. There are other things like disused railway stations. There are lighthouses. There's even industrial, and these things can be saved by doing things like this. I'm absolutely, utterly believe in this form of privatization, because I believe that this actually increases the value and all of it, and it creates taxpayers, people paying tax on the land for the local authority, rather than the local authority having to maintain things that it doesn't want. Now, I'm assuming that the title in all cases is clear. Often where I am now, I'm in Central Europe, in Poland, title is not always clear, and this can create all sorts of legal problems. I'm assuming that in Italy there is no problems with the title, so if the families went off to the United States in 1882, that they're not going to come back now. Well, they won't be coming back, but their great grandchildren won't be coming back and say, hey, that's my house there. So I'm assuming that all of these things there are taken care of, and there will be no legal problems. Now, if somebody said to me, would you do it? First of all, I don't want to live in a house anyway, but any longer. I'm quite happy living in a motorhome, but I wouldn't do it. And the first place is this: if I were thinking of retirement, I certainly wouldn't be thinking of a medieval village where I've got to walk up the top of the hill. Every time I go out, I come back, I've got to walk up a very steep hill, because that's the way they all are, because that's the way they were built there, and because of protection. So I would suggest that, you know, if you're sort of really fit, but if you're in retirement, you tend not to be all that super fit. It might be, I don't know. I'll just use that as one example. The next reason I wouldn't do it is because I think, okay, I'm not getting it for €1. I've got these other costs I've just mentioned, and all these other headaches, and all the other problems, and the paperwork. And in Italy, they're famous for the amount of paperwork, and if something doesn't quite add up, then they're going to want more and more put onto it. But just from my experience in working as a developer, I've got a reasonable idea. Sorry, I haven't done it now for some years, but I've got a reasonable idea how much construction costs are. And to be quite honest, the construction costs of building something from new is going to be very similar, if not less, than the cost of renovating one of these old houses. Of course, now if you're living in a house in a medieval center, then it is it's not the same as living in a house which you just built. So I do appreciate that. It's a lifestyle choice and all the rest of it. I know that this hasn't got anything really to do, well, it has got a little bit to do with van life, but anyway, so that was one thing I really thought I have to talk about, because I've seen so much rubbish on the press, and that sort of reflects my own knowledge. I obviously, well, maybe not obvious, but I speak Italian. I spent a great deal. I live in Italy as my one of my 3 countries. So I thought spend my time in Germany, Poland, and Italy. So they're those 3 are sort of, that's my life. That's where I go. So I go to the UK once a year or twice a year or something. But that's where I am. Thanks for the comments there. Actually, there was one comment: how many spare tires should I? So I'm coming off this subject now. I'm going on to the motorhome stuff. How many spare tires should I carry on the van? Well, spare wheels, depends where you're going. So he said to me, when you go to Ukraine, you need to carry at least 2 spare wheels. If you're just hanging around the roads in Europe, and I don't think there's a problem. I did see somebody said hello from Brazil. I don't know the state the roads are in Brazil, if they're but if they're anything like what they are in Ukraine, then I suppose you need two lots in Brazil as well. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Of course, Brazil doesn't really have the extremes of temperature that Ukraine does. So I have a spare wheel. In there's many vans which actually don't have a spare wheel at all. And in fact, when I had to ring up the assistant, what do you call the assistants, the breakdown assistants, they said to me, "Do you have one?" And so there. Marie's just asked if there's any insulation. Yes, that's the insulation. What happened is that we actually put some paper on the top of the insulation, and the paper fell off. and I still haven't replaced it. Looking up, yeah, there's still a bit of, well, there is still a bit of, couple of bits of paper still hanging up there. So so my friend Emilia just mentioned that the new ones don't have a spare wheel as standard. Yes, that's very true. Often they don't have a spare wheel, and I think really you're taking a risk by not having a spare wheel. I mean, I've had 2 punctures in this one. I'd had a blowout on the motorway in Germany in February of last year, and I had another time again in Germany. I was almost on the Dutch border. In fact, I didn't even know what country I was in, but when I had it, and I had to. And another thing is this: it's with a motorhome, it's not like a car, because I thought I'll just change it myself. So I got it up, and then I found out I couldn't do it. It's a job for 2 people, or you've got to have someone with a pump, one of these. You can't. I mean, just trying to jack it up. It's very difficult to do. Having you said that, we didn't know. No, but there was 2 of us. Yeah, when I put new brakes on. So yeah, but there was 2 of us doing it then, and. So do carry. I really think you should carry a spare wheel. I'm all for sort of saving weight where you can, but I think that's a bit silly, really. I mean, what would you do if you break down somewhere and you haven't got a spare wheel? So you've got to order one to come with you, and then presumably you're going to have to pay for it. And presumably they're not going to be charging you the same amount as you'd pay normally. And not only that, so you get this other spare, you get this wheel, then you're going to have to, because the tyres aren't going to fit, because it's only an emergency tyre anyway. So anyway, yeah, right. So mine is 3,500 kilos. And admittedly, if I tried to put 4 people in, it would be over. Sorry, if I loaded it up completely, it would be overweight. Yes, but I don't do that anyway. So if I had had a full tank of water, which I always carry on with me, a fuel tank of fuel, and all the other stuff, yes, I would be around 3,600 and something. But I don't do that. So there's 2 people. There's never more. Sorry, not true. I once had 3 people in the van. No, once had 5 people in the. No, I can't have done 4. No, I had 4. Sorry, with me, I can't have had 5. 4 is the maximum I've ever had. 5 with the dog, and yeah. But with new vans, I mean, there is a bit of a problem there with them being overweight or underweight, whatever. They weigh too much. I mean, they cannot. This is the problem with putting all these beds in vans, and I complain about this, and there's people sort of saying, don't understand. Some people have kids, yeah, but they can't travel with the kids, can they? If the thing's going to be overweight, so that is a major issue with vans. There was another question. Sorry, I've forgotten what it was now, because I saw it come up, and it sort of my concentration was sort of went for a moment as I was going on about the cost of properties in Italy. Okay, well, never mind. If I didn't answer, if you said something and didn't answer it, then please try and please send the message again. I've done this actually on my mobile phone, which makes it a bit more difficult from with the computer. At least I see everything in front of me. With the mobile phone, it's sort of like a few things sort of just flicker on there shortly, and then if I don't get it immediately, particularly if 2 or 3 come at the same time, so I don't actually see it. Right, so thanks very much for being here. I hope you found that interesting, and that is I think it's a more unusual topic. It's something that I think a lot of van lifers are actually thinking about, because I've had people say this to me. So Annie says she likes the motorhome ceiling, yeah, but it will be covered. And if I was going to keep, sorry, I'm going to keep the van. That sounds a dreadful thing to say. I don't think this van, in all honesty, is. I'll possibly once I get around to doing the Mercedes, I'll possibly get rid of it. But I'll possibly move into the Mercedes. But with the Mercedes, but if I was keeping it long term, maybe I would increase the insulation. I don't know. You know, the trouble is this: you've got to live for the moment, and you can't keep thinking, oh, well, I'll do this sometime in the future, I'll do that. You know, this is the thing that people sort of van life and wanting to get away and do things, and say, well, but first I got to do this. Oh, maybe next year, but you know, maybe never comes. I remember there's this woman I was seeing when I was a student, and she was a couple of years older than I am, and I am, I'm 2 or 3 years older, and she studied law in Paris, and she was studying, and she said, oh, when she finishes she's going to travel and do this. I bet she's never did. She'd be just about retirement age now. I bet she never travelled once. I bet she just stayed in a rather nice flat in the centre of Paris. Well, flat, it was one room, but it was rather nice. And anyway, so there you have it. Good. So thanks very much for watching. That's about half an hour film, almost an hour, 25 minutes. And I have got, there'll be another video this evening. Thanks, Folding, for being here. Thank you, thank you. If there's any questions, incidentally, on that subject there, I'm not a legal person. I'm not really a real estate person, but I do have a little bit of knowledge on it. So if there's any questions on the relating to buying properties in other countries, I do, at least with me, you'll get, I don't have to say you get the truth, but or the facts. You'll get the truth as I'm not trying to sell it. I'm just trying to point out the reality of the situation. Thanks for being here, Bruno, and thanks to Brazil as well for saying the point, and thank you for everybody else. If I've missed anybody else out, thank you. Thanks, Marie. Have a good weekend. I shall be spending my time in this motorhome doing putting together videos. I'm putting videos for my history site and for the motorhome. So I'm trying to do the two, and I want to have enough on the history site now to see me through for quite some time. So I've got a regular video every at least one, and I'm trying to do two. But I've got that plan, two year what do you call it? A two year plan is now been made. So I've got videos now until 31st of March 2022, either one or two every week, and at the moment I'm publishing 4 or 5 a week. So that's the plan. That with motorhomes I can't do that because it's a bit more news related. It's not entirely news related because much of the stuff that I'm putting up is from I'm still using stuff from Dusseldorf, which was 6 months ago. Thanks Annie, thanks everybody, all the best. Bye from Poland. Bye.